Margaret, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to have this conversation, and I'm so happy that you're willing to join me today.
Well, I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So I wanted to first off ask, what is this upcoming workshop that you're holding tonight all about? It's called Awakenings, Anti-Racism Exploration for White People. So can you tell us a little bit about what this workshop is all about?
Okay. Well, it's actually an 8 week series um, of 2 hours per week with a bit of prep and self reflection in between times. And it's basically for white people to learn to understand what racism looks like in interactions and in communities and in the systems that we have in Canada, the legal system, the medical system, the education system. Um, um, those all have racism embedded in them. As we know, we've been hearing a lot about that in the news, and just in the last year, people have been talking a lot more about racism. And so in the series, we learn about what racism looks like, how to identify our own biases, which we all have just as a natural part of being human. We also look at history and what parts have often been left out of history in our educational settings
Mm-hmm.
and in the news, kind of the slants that get told and the slants that get left out. Um, uh, yeah, and then we look at what is it that we can do, each of us, in our own situations and our own spheres of influence. What can we
Mm-hmm.
do to help make anti-racism a little more prevalent?
Right. So the actual term white people, is that politically correct? Because I feel like you can have people that are of indigenous heritage that are not of color. What is the definition of white people, and is that term considered to be derogatory?
That's a good question. It's not actually. It's just a recognition that those of us with white skin, usually European heritage, um, have a certain we have a certain amount of privilege in the society because of the color of our skin, and we have no it's quite common to refer to folks as indigenous or as black or South Asian, kind of to identify them by either the color of their skin or their cultural origin. But with white people, what kind of ties us all together and denotes that privilege is the fact that we have white skin. And so I know it does seem controversial and it seems a bit counterintuitive, but it's actually a way of really looking at what the issues are around race in our
Mm-hmm.
society.
I've
Um,
had, sorry, I've had a few questions. I've had definitely a lot of conversations around this topic, and I find that people that are not of color tend to get the term, using the actual term. I get my back up when I hear white supremacy or racism or white fragility. Why do you think that's so uncomfortable for people to have these tough conversations, and why it's so important to attend workshops like this?
hmm. Well, I think the conversations are tough because nobody wants to be a bad person,
Hmm.
and so I think we have this strange um, either or. It's kind of like a catch 22 that if you are racist, then you are a bad person. And so none of us want to be bad people, so we can't really admit that we have any racism in us. And yet we have all grown up, no matter who we are, whatever color our skin is, we've all grown up in a society um, that has racism in all its structures and all its systems. And um, so I think if we can kind of get off that good bad thing and recognize that, yeah, we have racism in us, and we all just have these biases that we have grown up with, that we maybe came into the world with because of genetics, that kind of stuff. And if we can say instead, not am I racist, but how am I racist? And what am I going to do about that? And then we'll actually, I think if we switch that language, we'll actually get a little further in making changes with racism in our society.
Now, why did you create this program? I'm imagining that it comes from a personal connection to having a need or want to create a program like this. How did it start and why?
Well, I live in the Northern Secwepemc Territory, what's known commonly as Williams Lake. And I've lived and worked here for many years, over 20 years. And there's quite a divide in the community and a lot of racism towards Indigenous people, and also towards Black people and other people of color. And so I've seen this, in schools and nonprofit settings where I've worked, and it's not right, and it feels unfair, and it feels like things aren't getting better, and violence continues to happen, and people even get killed, and and that's not okay, and we need to work together to address that. And I know that a lot of people, if I can say, a lot of people, Indigenous people, I think, are losing faith in the path of reconciliation, because it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. It's just talk. And so as far as I'm concerned, I want to do something so it's not just talk.
Action. I agree. Was it hard, or was it a tough decision for you, being that you are a white person, creating a workshop for white people on racism? Was it at all intimidating for you to step into this role? Were you worried about any backlash from people of color?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm worried about backlash from anyone. But
same.
Yeah, I want us all to get along.
Right.
But I think it's really, white people have work to do, and systems aren't going to change unless we understand our own racism and our own complicity in systems. And I think, yeah, we all have this work to do. And yet, as a white person, I think what I can offer is to help white people understand their own bias and their own process. And it doesn't, I think Indigenous and Black and other people of color have learning to do too, but not really from me. I think there's other people much better suited. And even, for white people can't only learn from white people. This is kind of a certain time limited group that they can learn a little bit in order to be able to go into mixed conversations and mixed anti-racism settings, and hopefully be able to do less harm.
So the program starts tonight. It's completely booked. It's already full, which I'm so happy to hear that that's happening in our communities. Like yourself, I've definitely see the division here locally in our communities, and having these conversations are awkward. They are tough, and I often say it's okay to have tough conversations. We can still have these conversations and still be kind to each other. Now, if somebody is watching who is thinking, well, I'm not a racist, I love all people, or this course isn't for me, I'm not racist at all, or uh, even think that it's a silly topic to discuss, what advice would you give to those people that perhaps would help them understand what your workshop is all about?
Um, well, first, I would just want to recognize that um, if you say that you're anti-racist, and if you say that you just love all people and see all people, then you really actually need to see the struggles that people have. You can't totally just love an Indigenous and a Black person as a person without noticing that they encounter systemic racism on a daily basis. And that's uncomfortable for us. That's uncomfortable for us to recognize. But we kind of have to sit with that discomfort, because when we look at our history, we have a really shameful history, actually. We have slavery, we have residential schools, we have the 60s scoop, we have boats of immigrants being turned away in their time of need. At various times, Japanese internment camps. So there's a lot to reckon with, and if we want to be helpful and unified as a society, we actually really have to start engaging these issues. And so I encourage you to somehow, just start learning about them. Pick up a book. Pick up White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, or How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, there's so many amazing books. Even like fiction books just really give you a window into different worldviews and life. There's lots of courses out there you can take. My course is a good introduction for white folks, but white people need to learn from people with lived experience as well. Salam Debs out of Waterloo, Ontario has a great course. Chastity Davis Alphonse up here in Secwepemc Territory has a course called, her platform is called DN, and the course she's offering right now is Canadian History Through the Lens of Indigenous Women. So there's many, many ways to learn and to just start even dipping your toes into the topics and the issues. And it's really vital to having community cohesion.
All right. So if someone would like to have more information or when they can take your next course, where can they go?
Well, the best way at the moment is to email me. I'm working on a website that's in process. Is there a way to share my email on screen at all?
Yeah, you bet. I'll pop that up as well, and then also you do have the program PDF. Can I share that with our audience?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, yeah. I'll do that. Margaret, and thank you so much for joining us today on your workshop. And before we say goodbye, is there anything else that you'd like to add for viewers watching today?
Okay. I guess that the program that I offer is one of the strengths, I think, of it is that it's a small group. So it's maximum 10 people. And so we get to know each other very well and learn in a supportive environment where we really learn from each other and challenge each other and support each other in our learning. And I'll be running another session likely in the summer, but for sure in September. So if you're interested, you're welcome to get in touch. Be happy to be on the journey with you. And thank you so much, Dana. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope we can meet in person one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, and we'll chat with you again soon.
Okay, thank you.